Wow. You may take your seat. Maraming salamat po, Dr. Charita de los Reyes. Thank you for that rather exhaustive and very humbling intro. This is my first time here in UP Baguio. And let me be the first to congratulate you, the class of 2024 of the University of the Philippines, Baguio. Let me also congratulate the parents of class 2024, as there is no one happier than the parents in this occasion of a son or a daughter graduating from college and from a prestigious learning institution such as UP Baguio. Congratulations are also in order of the newly appointed Chancellor, Dr. Joel Adawe, Vice Chancellors Alipio Garcia and Jericho Bacani, and all the Professor Emeriti, the faculty, and the staff. Maganda, pero napakaulan na umaga sa inyong lahat. Akala ko po makakancel itong event natin ngayon. I was watching from the hotel. You know, the pouring of the rains was seemingly non-stop. Pero buti na lang. I'm very, very delighted to be with you. I can only surmise that most of you have followed my personal travails as a politician and public servant, and that I have somehow gained a certain amount of sympathy from the constituency of this university. Siguro naman, ano? I would have not been surprised if the invitation to speak before a graduating class came from my hometown of Iriga City or from any of the colleges or universities in Bicol. Alam niyo po, ngayon lang po ako ulit gumagamit ng ganitong mga gadget. Nangangapa pa po ako because I was totally deprived of the use of these things when I was there at the PNP Custodial Center. You see, my links to the North are not that substantial for me to merit the prestige of being with you on this most important day of your life in this wonderful city. Unfortunately, my most popular link to the North, aside from lawyering for reformist politicians like former Isabela Governor Grace Padaka when I was still an election law practitioner, is actually a case of red tagging. I was targeted and identified with Ilocano Jose Maria Sison since his wife, Juliet de Lima, is a distant relative of my late father. This distant relation to Joma's wife was also used by the Duterte regime in their demolition job against me when they tagged me as a communist sympathizer. This was, of course, in addition to the equally ridiculous accusation that I was a protector of the bilibid drug trade, that I was the bilibid drug trade queen. I am the least to be a communist. I am a progressive human rights defender who believes in people empowerment and social justice, and my record as a public servant will bear that out. During my more than 6 years of incarceration, I actually became more religious, following a strict schedule of prayers, praying for my freedom and that of the Filipino people from the clutches of a violent regime. I also like nice clothes, to a moderation, of course. This has become a problem because after almost 7 years behind bars and without a proper wardrobe, I now have to work double time to come up with a decent collection for occasions such as this. I have to do this because, you see, I lost some weight inside Camp Crame, and that's good. In the past few months, after gaining freedom, I have accepted countless speaking engagements, too many, I think, for my own rest and comfort. But that is okay. Nothing beats being free and happy once again, to be with friends and loved ones. Being free also lets me accept invitations like this and grab the opportunity to share my life experiences and my struggles as a public servant, a politician, and a political activist. This occasion is special. Being chosen as a graduation speaker for UP Baguio is very flattering. Thank you very much for the honor, UP Baguio. This invitation and standing before all of you today brings me much honor, and I want all of you to know that. During these occasions, two things stand out: work and career. After this march and last gathering among your peers as students, all of you will be too busy for work and planning your careers to even care about a lot of things that occupied you in the past. Most of you will be choosing between two opposing options: stay in this country or plan your migration for further studies or to work abroad. That is a real choice that will change the course of your life. You will do well not postponing it for so long in order to avoid your what-if moments 10 or 20 years from now. How do you envision yourself in 2034, in 2044? You don't have to make that decision now, not today at least. Today is a day of celebration. For now, let me share some thoughts and life experiences that you can go back to once you come around to planning your future for yourself, your family, and your country. The first lesson that I'd like to share with you is that no matter how you feel isolated or lonely or fettered in your choices, the immutable fact of life is that you are never alone. There is this line in the last Star Wars movie that goes like this, quote, "They hope to defeat us by making us believe that we are alone," unquote. In life, defeat only comes when you start believing that you are alone. The good news is that being alone is not the natural state of human existence. The bad news is that a lot of us still believe that it is. For myself, it is in the most ironic of circumstances that the realization came to me. It is in involuntary physical isolation, the most isolated I've been in my entire life, that I felt solidarity and communion with others. Pardon the cliche, but it was my version of the footprints in the sand. It was in my lowest moment that my family, friends, and relatives carried me and helped me with the burden of isolation and persecution. Never underestimate the human capacity for compassion and empathy. Sure, both are always contested for dominance by greed, hatred, intolerance, and entitlement. But again, the natural state of humanity is community and social existence. This is why we do not go around killing each other every day as a matter of course. No, instead, we go out every day to work so we can provide for our families and be productive members of society. Caring is our natural state. Not caring is a social deviation, and taken to its extreme forms is penalized as crimes. Let us keep it that way, even when at one point in a recent past, a lot of us decided to give state-sponsored summary executions a chance to be the path to national transformation and social reform. This was a dark period indeed, when almost all of us lost our marbles and thought of nothing but our own entitlement to live while others should die. But that is the exact opposite of the essence of community. The essence of community tells us that no one is truly alone. As you are human, as long as you are human, even in your worst situations, you will always have an intimate unit of society you can rely on for compassion and comfort. The second lesson I want to share is that every human life matters. This might seem unnecessary to point out because it is self-evident. But it turns out that every now and then we need to be reminded that human life is sacred. This is a truism many of us readily forgot in 2016 and years after, when, as I said, we gave extrajudicial killings a chance as a means to change our society for the better. The latter statement may sound absurd now, but not so long ago. A clear majority of Filipinos supported summary executions. They lauded Duterte's drug war that was solely based on the indiscriminate killing of the impoverished and faceless masses of our people. During those times, I felt at first that I was alone in reminding our nation that murder is murder, and that whatever lofty end or goal one professes to achieve, one can never justify going against the very foundation of God's law and the law of humanity. Thou shalt not kill. But even in finding myself all alone, reminding people that killing is wrong, especially during the House and Senate hearings where I underwent a kangaroo trial, I learned another lesson. A single person can always make a difference, no matter the odds. Sometimes all it takes and all that is needed is for one person's voice to be heard. I call it the Shannon Man's moment, recalling that episode in history when one man stood in front of a line of tanks to defend the pro-democracy student movement in Shannon Square. This is especially true when making your voice heard against what is unpopular but wrong is the only right thing to do. Do not be afraid to go against the tide of public opinion, especially when it is driven by no more than illusions and novelty, if not by the sheer frenzy of a collective madness. Your voice matters. And it could be that one single voice, though silenced, it might eventually prove to be the only voice of reason. This brings me to the fourth lesson, one which I've always known and believed to be true, and which is the reason why I keep on fighting. There is hope for this country. This might seem counterintuitive at a moment and at other points in a recent past, but this belief is reinforced by the previous 3 lessons that I've already shared. I remain hopeful for our people in this country, despite 2016, despite 2022. It is not that I do not have any choice. Unlike most of our countrymen who are bound to the soil, the seas, or the labor into which they were born and in which they will most likely see the end of their lives, I had choices. Like you, I had the opportunity of choosing to remain or to seek my fortune in other countries where the struggle for social change is no longer an imperative. The turnaround in public opinion in the 6-year drug war is an example that things can still change for the better. In the same Congress where I was crucified, Duterte and his men are now the ones being investigated for the killings they committed in the drug war. In fact, I was invited as a resource person in that hearing, and tomorrow I will be appearing in the House to testify in their inquiry on Duterte's drug war. Imagine that. The very institution that gift-wrapped and delivered me to my jailer of more than 6 years is now inviting me to testify against that same jailer. No kaya yun? At hindi naman daw pupunta. Things can change for the better. What is certain is that even if people dedicated to change will only achieve a small percentage of their objectives, small victories will always matter. Change will be slow. It will not be revolutionary or cathartic. It will never be instantaneous. Nothing good comes out of instant solutions that are promised by men and women who have barely studied our history and learned from its people. We should know this by now. The promised eradication of crime and drugs did not come true with the instantaneous killing of thousands of impoverished Filipinos. It was a short-sighted solution to a complex social problem. It was not even a solution at all. It was a populist platform that fed on people's fears, impatience, and sins of entitlement. It had no foundation on the basic premise of what the intended solution is for in the first place: the attainment of a just and democratic society with compassion for those who have the least opportunity in life. That change would be revolutionary and would come automatically, was also the first mistake of the 1986 February EDSA revolution. Many of us then thought that after toppling a dictator, we could just all go back to our usual routines. We should all just go back, minding our own individual lives, and leave governance to the politicians and the bureaucrats. We now know that this is wrong, especially if we expect social change. We can never assume that centuries of economic marginalization of the majority can change into one of equal opportunities overnight. This simply does not happen. One builds a future brick by brick in a painstaking process we call democracy. Twice we already experimented with the authoritarian method, from 1972 to 1986, and most recently from 2016 to 2022. If we have learned anything from these experiments, it is that we cannot issue a blank check to a single leader to change the country for us, even if he promises to do it in 6 months, and especially if he promises to do it in 6 months. The key to change lies before us today, as we now see it in each and every one of you, the graduates of 2024. Quality education for every Filipino at all levels, from primary to tertiary. Many of the UP graduates I have met came from humble beginnings. More often than not, their public education became a whole family's passport out of poverty and into the modern world of economic mobility. From the august halls of UP also came the various intellectual and organizational leaders of transformative political and social movements. From the days of martial law up to the present, UP graduates were at the forefront of intellectual ferment in our society. And for those who also had the skills and dedication for its demanding work, they were also the pioneers in grassroots community and sectoral organizing. VP Lenny Robredo was one of them. This brings me to the fifth and final learning I will share with you today. This lesson is why we hope, and that is why there will be change for the better. The hope of change for the better largely lies on the choices that the best and brightest of our people will make starting tomorrow after today's celebration. Our hope for change lies in the choices that you will make. As I said, some of you will choose to seek greener pastures abroad, and that is not something unusual, given the global interconnectedness that has made your generation more of citizens of one world rather than of separate nations. For those of you who choose to stay, there is only one thing that worries me. I worry that someday in the future, a generation from now, you will regret the choice that you made. I hope that you do not become like those in our generation and the generation after us, who are so disappointed in the lack of progress for half a century that they regret not migrating the first chance that they had. It is hard building a just and modern society, especially of a people that has gone through a history of disempowerment, miseducation, and marginalization. But as I said, the hope for change lies in the best and the brightest of our people. But if the best and the brightest keep on leaving, then that hope only decreases exponentially. For my generation, the generation that followed us, staying was a difficult struggle. Your generation will have its own challenges, and I do not presume to know what they will be, or if they will be the same as ours. If you do choose to stay, just remember some of the lessons learned with you today. You will not be alone, and you can make a difference. As long as you believe that, there will be hope for this country and its people. Once you make that choice, do not ever doubt yourself why you made it. You made that choice because you know you have what it takes to make a difference. In the early Monday of Sunday, October 9, 2022, 3 Abu Sayyaf detainees rushed to my quarters inside Camp Krame. 2 of them were taken down by a police sniper while still trying to gain access to my quarters, but 1 succeeded in taking me hostage. He bound my arms and legs and blindfolded me before making his decisions to the guards, or before making his demands to the guards outside. After a while, he felt that his demands would not be met and that his situation was hopeless. The hostage taker then began the cleansing ritual that jihadis undergo to prepare for death. At that point, I also found myself preparing for what already was my impending death. I was then in prison at the time, October 2022, for almost 6 years. And then I'm taken hostage and almost killed while in prison. Only one thought kept repeating inside my head at that very moment. It would be a tragedy if all that I fought for were only to end with a terrorist knife on my chest. Fortunately, and with God's grace, I survived that day to go on fighting. On November 13, 2023, I was freed on bail. Last June 24, I was finally acquitted in my 3rd and last case. Mahirap po ang pinagdaanan. Today, on your graduation day, I am celebrating the first month of my unconditional freedom. In this, my second life, I renew that choice I made long ago to stay and fight for this country. Again, congratulations to the class of 2024 and Godspeed. Maraming salamat po.